The gathering storm. The observation deck of Aurora 7 station offered a view unlike any other in known space. Dr. Elena Voss stood with her hands pressed against the transparent aluminum viewport, watching 3 suns paint the nebula beyond in shades of copper and gold. Behind her, the diplomatic chamber hummed with tense conversations in a dozen alien languages. She had spent 5 years studying the Crithians, learning their culture, their history, their psychology. None of that knowledge seemed to matter now. "You should eat something," a familiar voice said softly. Elena turned to find Commander Marcus Chen approaching with 2 meal packets. His uniform was crisp despite the 17-hour session they'd just endured. Even exhausted, he moved with the precise economy of someone trained for combat. They had met 2 years ago during a cultural exchange program, and what began as professional respect had grown into something neither of them had expected. "Not hungry," Elena replied, but she accepted the packet anyway. Their fingers brushed, a moment of warmth in the cold reality of what was coming. Marcus stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "The Crithians won't back down," he said quietly. "Thaxos has made his position clear to his entire empire. Retreat would mean losing face." Elena nodded, her reflection ghostly in the viewport. 7,000 ships. They've been building this armada for 20 years. Every intercepted communication suggests they see us as soft targets. She paused. "Are we?" Marcus turned to face her, his expression serious. "Elena, look at me." She did, finding comfort in his steady gaze. Marcus reached up, gently tucking a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate, familiar, completely inappropriate for their current surroundings. Elena didn't care. "Whatever happens," Marcus said, "you need to trust that humanity didn't spend 50 years talking about peace without preparing for war. Admiral Okonkwo doesn't make empty contingency plans." "I know the theory," Elena said. "I've read the classified reports you showed me. But theory and practice are about to meet," Marcus finished. He glanced around the observation deck, confirming they were alone, then leaned down and kissed her. It was brief, gentle, filled with all the things they hadn't said to each other. When he pulled back, Elena saw concern in his eyes. "I'm being recalled to my ship in 3 hours. The Sentinel?" "Yes. Admiral Okonkwo is positioning all combat-rated vessels." He hesitated. "I wanted to tell you first, before it becomes official." Elena felt her chest tighten. The Sentinel was a frigate, supposedly designed for patrol duties. If Marcus was being recalled, it meant Earth Command was moving beyond diplomatic posturing. "How long?" "The Crithians gave us 72 hours. We're at hour 68. Behind them, the chamber doors opened with a pneumatic hiss. Ambassador Lu Wei emerged, his elderly face drawn with fatigue. "Dr. Voss, Commander Chen. War Prime Thaxos has requested a final audience. He wishes to deliver his ultimatum personally." Elena and Marcus exchanged glances. "When?" Elena asked. "Now. He's waiting in the main assembly hall." Lu Wei's expression was grave. "He's brought his entire war council. 300 Crithian warriors, all in full ceremonial armor. Elena, I need you to stand with me for this. Your xenobiological expertise might help us understand their body language, find some opening for negotiation." "Of course, Ambassador." Elena squeezed Marcus's hand once, briefly, then released it and straightened her shoulders. She followed Lu Wei toward the assembly hall, feeling Marcus's eyes on her back until she disappeared through the doors. The main assembly hall of Aurora 7 could accommodate 5,000 beings. Today, it felt cramped. War Prime Thaxos stood at the center platform, his massive form towering over the assembled diplomats. The Crithians were a warrior species, averaging 7 feet tall, with segmented exoskeletons that gleamed like polished obsidian under the chamber lights. Thaxos himself wore armor decorated with the marks of 40 conquered worlds. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of absolute certainty. Humans of Earth, Thaxos began, the Crithian dominion extends its final courtesy. You will surrender all colonies beyond your home system. You will provide tribute of resources and technology. You will acknowledge Crithian supremacy. He paused, his mandibles clicking in what Elena recognized as amusement. Or you will be removed from the galaxy. You have 4 hours remaining to choose. Echoes of defiance, the communication reached Earth at the speed of quantum entanglement, bypassing the normal delays of interstellar transmission. In the underground command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo read the transcript of Thaxos's ultimatum for the 3rd time. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of 7,000 Crithian warships massing at the edge of human space. 4 hours, said General Robert Keane, her second-in-command. They're not even pretending to negotiate anymore. Sarah stood motionless, her dark eyes scanning the tactical displays. At 58, she had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Status of Operation Silent Thunder. All vessels are in position, Keane replied. Captain Tanaka reports the stealth battle group is ready. The Sentinel and her sister ships have completed their transformation protocols. We can engage at your command. Sarah nodded slowly. And Dr. Voss? Still on Aurora, 7. She's requested permission to make one final diplomatic overture to Warprime Thaxos. Denied, Sarah said firmly. Elena has done everything possible. Thaxos chose this path. Recall Commander Chen from the station immediately. I want him on the Sentinel before the Crithians make their move. On Aurora, 7, Elena stood in her small quarters, staring at the official recall order on her tablet. Marcus was leaving in 30 minutes. She had 30 minutes to say everything that mattered, and no idea where to begin. The door chimed. Come in, she called. Marcus entered, no longer in his formal uniform. He wore the black combat suit of a field officer, designed for rapid deployment. The sight of it made Elena's heart sink. I tried to buy us more time, she said. I went back to Thaxos's delegation, proposed a neutral zone, a gradual withdrawal, anything to, Elena. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. You did everything right. Some species don't want peace. They want dominance. I'm supposed to be the expert on alien psychology, Elena whispered. I should have found a way. Marcus tilted her chin up gently. You found the way 2 years ago when you helped Admiral Okonkwo understand Crithian honor culture. That intelligence shaped our entire defensive strategy. He smiled sadly. Sometimes the best diplomacy is making sure your enemy knows the cost of war. Will I see you again? The question came out smaller than Elena intended. Yes, Marcus said with absolute certainty. He leaned down and kissed her, deeper this time, filled with promise and longing. When they finally broke apart, Elena had tears on her cheeks. I'm coming back, Elena. And when I do, we're going to have a very long conversation about our future. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. Marcus touched her face once more, memorizing her features. I love you, Elena Voss. I love you too. Then he was gone, and Elena was alone with the countdown to war. Aboard the Crithian flagship Eternal Conquest, Warprime Thaxos reviewed the invasion plans with satisfaction. His tactical officers had identified the 12 primary human colonies, catalogued their defenses, calculated the time required for complete subjugation. 3 days, perhaps 4. The humans had fewer than 300 combat vessels, most of them converted merchant ships. It would be a slaughter. Warprime, his communications officer announced, we are receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo wishes to speak with you directly. Thaxos's mandibles clicked in amusement. Put her through. Let us hear the humans beg. The holographic display shimmered, revealing a human female in military uniform. She looked old by human standards, her hair gray, her face lined. But her eyes held no fear. War Prime Thaxos, Admiral Okonkwo said calmly, I am authorized by Earth to deliver our final response to your ultimatum. Then you accept our terms? Thaxos asked, already savoring victory. No, Sarah replied. We reject them completely. More than that, we issue a counter-ultimatum. Withdraw your fleet from human space within the next 2 hours, or face the consequences. For a moment, Thaxos simply stared. Then he began to laugh, a harsh chittering sound. His war council joined in, the chamber filling with Crithian amusement. You dare threaten the Crithian dominion? Thaxos said when he could speak again. You, with your merchant fleet and your diplomatic words. Admiral, your species has existed in space for barely 2 centuries. We have conquered 40 worlds. We have destroyed species far more powerful than yours. Then you've made your choice, Sarah said quietly. History will record that we offered you peace. What happens next is your responsibility. The transmission ended. Thaxos turned to his fleet commanders. Begin the invasion. Show the galaxy what happens to species foolish enough to defy Crithian might. 7,000 warships began moving toward human space. In her command center, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo watched the enemy fleet advance. Around her, dozens of officers monitored their stations with practiced calm. They had trained for this. Planned for this. Hoped it would never come. All ships report ready, Admiral, General Keane said. Captain Tanaka's battle group is in position. The Sentinel and escort vessels have initiated protocol revelation. Sarah took a deep breath. 50 years of secrecy were about to end. Send the activation code, she commanded. Let's show them what humanity has been building. The price of arrogance. War Prime Thaxos stood before the main view screen of the Eternal Conquest, watching his armada spread across space like a metallic tide. 7,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of Crithian military engineering. The sight never failed to fill him with pride. This was power. This was dominance. Open all channels, he commanded. I want every species in the galaxy to witness this. His communications officer worked quickly. Channels open, War Prime. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Current viewership estimates exceed 12 billion across 400 worlds. Perfect. Thaxos straightened his armor and began speaking, his words transmitted to every corner of civilized space. Citizens of the galaxy, I am War Prime Thaxos of the Crithian Dominion. Today, you witnessed the price of defiance. The humans refused our generous terms. They chose pride over wisdom. Now, they will learn what it means to face true military power. Across the galaxy, beings gathered around screens. On Nexus Prime, the betting establishments fell silent. On the Viridian worlds, politicians calculated how this would affect trade routes. On the peaceful Andorian colonies, parents held their children close and hoped humanity's fate would not become their own. Observe, Thaxos continued, gesturing to the tactical display behind him. 7,000 warships. Each vessel capable of reducing cities to ash. This is the force that has conquered 40 worlds. This is what awaits any species foolish enough to challenge Crithian supremacy. The display showed human space ahead, 12 colonies, 1 home world, a scattered defensive fleet that looked pitifully small by comparison. Human military capabilities are primitive, Thaxos declared. Their largest vessels are cargo ships with weapons attached. Their commanders have never faced a real enemy. Within 6 hours, their colonies will surrender. Within 12, Earth itself will bow to Crithian rule. On Aurora, 7 Station, Dr. Elena Voss watched the broadcast with a mixture of dread and something else, something that felt like anticipation. Ambassador Lu Wei stood beside her, his expression unreadable. Elena, Lu Wei said quietly, Admiral Okonkwo sent me a private message. She asked me to tell you that Commander Chen is safe aboard the Sentinel, and that you should watch what happens next very carefully." Elena frowned. "What does that mean?" "I think we're about to find out." In Earth's command center, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo watched the Krithian fleet cross the boundary into human space. They moved in perfect formation, confident, overwhelming, completely unprepared for what was coming. "Captain Tanaka," Sarah said calmly, "you are authorized to engage. Execute Operation Silent Thunder." "Yes, Admiral," came the reply. "All units, this is Tanaka. Activate Phase 1. Throughout human space, ships that had appeared to be ordinary cargo vessels suddenly changed. Hull panels slid aside, revealing weapon arrays that had been hidden for decades. False identification signatures dropped away. The merchant fleet of humanity transformed before the galaxy's eyes into something else entirely, a military force using technology no one had seen before. Aboard the Sentinel, Commander Marcus Chen felt the ship shudder as transformation protocols completed. Around him, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in deep space, far from any observers. "All systems active," reported Lieutenant Commander Reeves. "Quantum disruptors charged and ready. Stealth field generators online. Weapon arrays at full capacity." Marcus studied the tactical display showing the Krithian fleet. So many ships. So much confidence. They had no idea what was about to hit them. "Sentinel to Battle Group 7, Marcus transmitted. We are weapons free. Engage on Captain Tanaka's mark." On the Eternal Conquest, alarms suddenly shrieked. Warprime Thaxos spun toward his tactical station. "Report. Warprime, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the human fleet." "There," the officer's voice rose in disbelief. "They're charging weapons we've never seen before. Power readings are off our scales." "Impossible," Thaxos snarled. "They have no advanced technology." "Our intelligence confirmed, Warprime, something's wrong with our systems," another officer shouted. "Weapons are going offline. Shields are fluctuating. I can't explain it." Across the Krithian armada, the same scene repeated on 7,000 bridges. Ships that had crossed half the galaxy to conquer humanity suddenly found their weapons systems failing, their shields dropping, their power cores behaving erratically. The quantum disruptor field created by humanity's hidden technology was interfering with every military system the Krithians possessed. Captain Yuki Tanaka watched from her command ship as the enemy fleet drifted helplessly in space. She was 42 years old, had spent 20 years training for this moment in facilities so secret that most of Earth didn't know they existed. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "All vessels, target acquisition complete. The enemy is defenseless. Fire at will." What happened next lasted less than a minute but would be remembered for centuries. Human ships unleashed weapons technology that had been developed in absolute secrecy. Particle beams that could cut through any known armor struck with surgical precision. Antimatter torpedoes, each one containing the destructive power of a small star, found their targets with perfect accuracy. Rail guns firing projectiles at relativistic speeds punched through Krithian hulls like they were paper. The technology was 50 years ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Earth scientists had studied every known weapon system, every defensive technology, and then surpassed all of it. Warprime Thaxos had time for one final transmission before his flagship was struck. His voice, broadcast across the galaxy, carried shock and disbelief. "This cannot be, humans are peaceful. You build trade ships. You send diplomats." Admiral Okonkwo's response was heard on every world, every station, every ship in civilized space. "We are peaceful, Warprime. That's why we tried diplomacy first. But being peaceful has never meant being helpless." The destruction was absolute. 7,000 Krithian warships, the pride of an empire that had conquered 40 worlds, were eliminated in 45 seconds, where an armada had floated moments before. There was only empty space and expanding clouds of debris. The galaxy fell silent. Thunder's answer. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then every communications network in the galaxy exploded with activity. Captain Yuki Tanaka watched her tactical display confirm what seemed impossible to believe. 7,000 enemy contacts, gone. She had commanded starships for 18 years, had trained for this specific scenario for a decade, and still the reality of it left her momentarily stunned. "Captain," her executive officer said quietly, "all enemy vessels destroyed. No survivors detected. Our fleet reports 0 casualties, minimal ammunition expenditure." Yuki nodded slowly. "Send status report to Admiral Okonkwo. Mission accomplished. Threat neutralized." In the command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo allowed herself one moment of relief. Her team had spent 50 years preparing for this. Decades of secret research stations in deep space. Generations of scientists working in facilities that officially didn't exist. All of it had just proven its worth. "Admiral," General Keane said, "we're receiving transmissions from 400 worlds. Government leaders requesting immediate communication. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session." "Expected," Sarah replied. "Prepare my address to the galaxy. And get me a direct line to Aurora, 7. I want to speak with Ambassador Lu Wei and Dr. Voss personally." On the observation deck of Aurora, 7, Elena stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth. Around her, alien diplomats from dozens of species stared at the displays showing empty space where the Krithian armada had been. Some were speaking in hushed tones. Others simply stood in shocked silence. Ambassador Lu Wei touched her shoulder gently. "Elena, Admiral Okonkwo is on a private channel for you." Elena's hands shook as she accepted the communication device. "Admiral." "Dr. Voss," Sarah's voice was warm despite the circumstances. "I wanted you to hear this from me directly. Commander Chen is unharmed. The Sentinel performed perfectly. He'll be returning to Aurora, 7 within the hour." Relief flooded through Elena so powerfully she had to grip the railing to stay upright. "Thank you, Admiral." Thank you. You helped make this possible, Elena. Your analysis of Krithian psychology confirmed they would never accept diplomatic solutions. Your cultural studies helped us understand how to deliver a message the entire galaxy would comprehend." Sarah paused. "Stand ready. I'm about to address the Galactic Council. Humanity's position in the galaxy changes today." The transmission ended. Elena looked at Ambassador Lu Wei, who wore an expression of careful neutrality. "Ambassador, did you know about the weapons, the technology, all of it?" "I knew we were prepared," Lu Wei said carefully. "The specifics were above my clearance level. But yes, I knew humanity was not as helpless as we appeared." Across the galaxy, leaders scrambled to reassess everything they thought they knew about humanity. On the bring-in-home world, military commanders who had been planning an expansion campaign suddenly found themselves in emergency strategic reviews. The Zephyr Collective, which had been quietly studying human defenses for potential exploitation, immediately redirected resources toward diplomatic outreach. On Nexus Prime, the betting houses faced their greatest crisis in recorded history. Bookmakers who had offered odds against humanity now owed fortunes they couldn't pay. The few gamblers who had bet on the humans, mostly considered foolish or desperate, became wealthy overnight. But the most profound changes were happening in the minds of galactic governments. For centuries, the equation had been simple: peaceful species were prey, aggressive species were predators. Humanity had just rewritten that equation. The Galactic Council chamber filled rapidly. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered, all demanding answers. The chamber had never seen such attendance. Even species that rarely participated in galactic politics sent delegates. Ambassador Lu Wei took his position at the human podium. Beside him, Elena stood as humanity's xenobiological expert, still processing everything she had witnessed. The chamber fell silent as Admiral Sarah Okonkwo's holographic image appeared at the center of the assembly. "Honored delegates," Sarah began, her voice carrying authority that could not be questioned. "I am Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, Supreme Commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. I address you today to explain what you have witnessed and to clarify humanity's position in galactic affairs." Every eye, stalk, sensor, and optical organ in the chamber focused on her image. The Krithian Dominion issued an ultimatum to humanity. They demanded our colonies, our resources, our submission. We offered diplomatic alternatives. We proposed neutral zones, gradual withdrawals, mediated negotiations. War Prime Thaxos rejected every option. He chose conquest over cooperation. Sarah's expression hardened. So we responded as we have prepared to respond for 50 years. When humanity first joined galactic civilization, we studied the history of interstellar conflicts. We learned that peaceful species are often targeted by aggressive empires. We decided then that we would be peaceful by choice, not by necessity. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Viridian ambassador stood. "Admiral Okonkwo, your quantum disruptor technology is unprecedented. How long have you possessed such capabilities?" 47 years, Sarah replied. "We developed it in deep space facilities far from galactic observation. Our warships were designed to appear as merchant vessels. Our military training occurred in locations no other species knew to look. We hoped this day would never come, but we were ready when it did." The Draxii representative, whose own world had been conquered by the Krithians decades ago, spoke next. "Why reveal yourselves now? You could have maintained your deception, appeared weak while remaining strong." "Because the galaxy needed to see this," Sarah said firmly. War Prime Thaxos broadcast his attack to billions of viewers. He wanted to demonstrate Krithian power. Instead, the galaxy witnessed the consequence of threatening humanity. That message needed to be clear, undeniable, and unforgettable. Elena watched the alien delegates process this information. She could read the body language of a dozen species, and what she saw was a fundamental shift in understanding. Fear, yes, but also something else, respect. Admiral Okonkwo continued, "Let me be absolutely clear about humanity's intentions. We seek peaceful cooperation with all species. We value trade, cultural exchange, and diplomatic solutions to conflicts. But we will defend ourselves against any threat with whatever force is necessary. The choice between peace and war will always be offered, but the consequences of choosing war are now evident." New Dawn. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 14 hours. By the end, the galaxy had changed in ways that would echo for generations. Commander Marcus Chen's shuttle docked with Aurora, 7 exactly 73 minutes after the battle ended. He moved through the station's corridors with purpose, ignoring the stares from alien beings who now looked at humans with new eyes. Fear, respect, curiosity, he saw all of it and registered none of it. He had one destination in mind. Elena was waiting in her quarters. When the door opened and she saw him standing there, alive and whole, she didn't care about protocols or professional boundaries. She crossed the room in 3 steps and threw her arms around him. Marcus pulled her close, lifting her off the ground slightly, holding her as if he could make up for every moment of fear and uncertainty. "I told you I'd come back," he said softly into her hair. "You did." Elena pulled back just enough to look at his face, her hands framing his jaw. "Marcus, what we just witnessed." "I know." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. "Everything's different now. Is it better or worse?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "Better, I think. The galaxy knows what humanity is capable of. That knowledge should prevent future conflicts. Aggressive species will think twice before threatening anyone, not just us." Elena nodded against his chest. "Ambassador Lu Wei wants me to stay on Aurora, 7 for the next phase of diplomatic negotiations. Every species wants to establish formal peace treaties with Earth. I'll be here for at least 6 more months. Then I'm requesting transfer to Station Security Detail, Marcus said immediately. Admiral Okonkwo owes me about 17 years of leave time. I'm calling it in. Elena laughed, the sound breaking the tension that had held her rigid for days. You'd really stay here? On a diplomatic station? You'd be bored within a week. I'd be with you, Marcus replied simply. That's the opposite of boring. She kissed him again, deeper this time, filled with promise and relief and the overwhelming joy of survival. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Elena smiled. I love you, Commander Chen. I love you too, Dr. Voss. Now come on, Ambassador Lu Wei wants us both at the closing session. Apparently humanity is about to make history. Again. The Galactic Council chamber had transformed over the past hours. What began as chaos had evolved into something resembling order. Ambassador Lu Wei stood at the human podium, his elderly frame somehow projecting quiet authority. Elena and Marcus stood slightly behind him, officially present as technical advisors, though everyone in the chamber knew they were witnesses to a new era. The council chairman, an Altarian elder named Vexthar, spoke with hands that no longer trembled. Representatives of Earth, the Galactic Council has deliberated. We have reviewed the evidence, studied the tactical data, and considered the implications of what we have witnessed. We are prepared to present our resolution. Elena felt Marcus's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Galactic Council hereby recognizes humanity as a sovereign power of the First Order, Vexthar announced. All member species are prohibited from hostile actions against human territory. Any aggression toward humanity will be considered an act of war against the entire galactic community. The chamber erupted in affirmations from dozens of species. The Draxi representative stood and began to applaud, a human gesture he had learned specifically for this moment. Others joined in, creating a cacophony of approval in 100 different expressions. But Vexthar wasn't finished. Furthermore, the Council proposes the establishment of the Peacekeeping Through Deterrence Initiative, with humanity serving as the primary enforcement authority. Your quantum disruptor technology and advanced weapons systems would be deployed to protect peaceful species from aggressive empires. Ambassador Lu Wei raised his hand for silence. The Council honors us with this proposal. However, humanity must decline the role of galactic enforcer. We did not develop our capabilities to police the galaxy. We developed them to ensure our own survival and to protect our right to remain peaceful. Murmurs of surprise filled the chamber. The Viridian ambassador spoke up. But Ambassador, with your technology, you could prevent countless conflicts. You could save billions of lives. Perhaps, Lu Wei acknowledged. Or we could become the very thing we defended ourselves against. An aggressive power that imposes its will through superior force. Humanity chooses a different path. We will defend our allies through mutual defense treaties. We will share non-military technology to improve lives across the galaxy. But we will not become an empire, no matter how benevolent the intentions. Elena felt pride swell in her chest. This was humanity at its best, powerful enough to dominate, wise enough to choose partnership instead. However, Lu Wei continued, we propose an alternative. Humanity will establish the Galactic Defense Initiative. Any peaceful species threatened by aggressive powers may request assistance. We will evaluate each request on its merits and provide aid when justified. But the decisions will be made through diplomatic channels, not military might alone. The proposal passed with overwhelming support. Within hours, 17 species had submitted formal requests for defensive pacts with Earth. The Andorian colonies, long threatened by the Ironbound Collective, were first in line. The surviving Draxi government was second. As the session concluded and delegates began departing, Elena and Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching ships from 100 worlds preparing to carry news of humanity's new status across the galaxy. 6 months ago, Elena said quietly, I came to this station hoping to prevent a war. Instead, I witnessed the most decisive military victory in galactic history. You did prevent a war, Marcus corrected gently. Your diplomatic efforts gave the Crithians every opportunity to choose peace. They refused. What happened after that was their choice, not yours. Elena leaned against him, feeling his warmth and solidity. What happens to us now? After the treaties are signed and the diplomatic tours are over? Marcus turned her to face him, his expression serious but eyes warm. I've been thinking about that. What would you say to a joint assignment? The Galactic Defense Initiative will need cultural liaisons. People who understand both human and alien psychology. Who better than a xenobiologist and a tactical officer? Are you proposing we work together? Elena asked, a smile playing at her lips. I'm proposing more than that. Marcus reached into his uniform pocket and produced a small box. Inside was a ring, simple but beautiful, crafted from earth metals and set with a stone from humanity's first colony world. I'm proposing we do everything together. Elena Voss, will you marry me? For a moment, Elena couldn't speak. Then she laughed, pure joy breaking through. Yes. Absolutely yes. Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her as ships from 100 worlds departed Aurora, 7, carrying the news that would reshape galactic civilization. 3 months later, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood in the botanical gardens of Earth, surrounded by trees and flowers that had grown undisturbed while humanity's fate hung in the balance. Beside her, President Martina Cross reviewed reports of the new galactic order. 17 defensive pacts signed, President Cross said. 43 trade agreements in negotiation. 3 aggressive empires have voluntarily entered diplomatic talks rather than risk conflict. Sarah, what we've accomplished is remarkable. What we've revealed, Sarah corrected. The accomplishment took 50 years. Now comes the hard part, maintaining peace without becoming tyrants. Do you think we can? Sarah smiled, something she rarely did in official settings. I've just returned from attending the wedding of Commander Chen and Dr. Voss. 2 people from different disciplines who found common ground through respect and understanding. If they can build something lasting through cooperation, so can humanity and the galaxy. The sun set over Earth, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. In orbit above, the defense fleet stood ready, no longer hidden but no longer aggressive. Humanity's ships were a promise, peace through strength, cooperation through respect, security through preparation. Across the galaxy, historians began revising their texts. The age of conquest through superior numbers had ended. A new era had begun, one where peaceful species stood protected, aggressive empires thought twice before attacking, and humanity served as an example of what could be achieved when wisdom guided strength. In her apartment on Aurora, 7, Elena Chen, she had taken Marcus's name, reviewed applications for the Galactic Defense Initiative's Cultural Liaison Program. Beside her, Marcus studied tactical assessments of emerging threats. They worked in comfortable silence, occasionally touching hands, building a life together in a galaxy that had learned an important lesson. Being peaceful was a choice. Being helpless was not. And humanity had chosen both peace and the strength to defend it. The enemy had declared war. Humanity's response had been swift, decisive, and unforgettable. The galaxy would remember. The end.